Welcome to Divorce to Dynamite. I'm Michelle O'Neill. Today I want to talk to you about the monsters under the bed. So remember when you were a child and you just knew the minute that you went to bed and the minute that the lights went out that you were 100% absolutely convinced that there were monsters under the bed. And no matter what anybody told you, you just knew there were monsters under the bed. And every creak in the house, every little noise, just the minute you were almost asleep, you would hear something. What was that? Was that the monster under the bed? And you'd yell out for somebody and turn the light on, and there's no monster. And you look under the bed, and there's no monster. But the minute that light went back off, you heard it again. That monster, the monster's under the bed. But then you grew up, and somehow there wasn't a monster anymore. You know now that the monster was really fear. Fear of the dark, fear of being alone in the dark, fear of just maybe being alone, fear of maybe some other things that were going on in your life or in your childhood. Fear. As women after divorce, we may have many fears. Just as women, there are many things that we fear. And like monsters under the bed, some of those fears are not necessarily real. What could some of those fears be? Maybe the fear of being alone. After a divorce, after a long-term relationship, facing life just without that partner, even if the partner wasn't the best partner, even if the partner wasn't the ideal partner, facing life without that partner, that can be something that is scary. Fear of financial instability. Financial instability is such a huge issue for women after divorce. You know, women statistically across the board lose an average of 40% of their household income after divorce. Maybe you're one of those that has less than that statistic or more than that statistic. But fear of financial instability is definitely a tangible fear, a real fear. And divorce brings with it, you know, that very, very uncertainty, that real uncertainty of the fear that you won't have the right amount of finances or the right certainty of finances after the divorce. The fear of judgment. After divorce, we worry about stigma or criticisms by friends or family or maybe even the community that you hang out in that might judge you about your divorce or the circumstances of your divorce. The fear of starting over. Just the fear of rebuilding your life, starting a new career. Maybe you're having to relocate after your divorce. The fear of dating again. I mean, that is almost overwhelming to think of. Another thing that women after divorce might fear is the fear of the children's well-being. The fear that the divorce will somehow negatively impact the children. The fear of the divorce, the fear that the children going with their other parent after the divorce and not being with their mother. Those can all be fears. Some women fear making the same mistake after the divorce, repeating the same patterns that got them in the place of leading to the divorce in the first place. Women fear the unknown. Sometimes being in an unhappy marriage, being in a less than desirable marriage, at least carries with it certainty. And when you go through a divorce, all of the sands underneath your feet all of a sudden feel like they're shifting. And then when you get through the divorce, you're past it, you're uncertain what the future holds. You're uncertain what your personal identity is. Maybe you have to change your entire social circle. You're uncertain about future relationships. You don't know whether you'll ever find another partner. All of the fear of the unknown can be intimidating. Some women fear losing those support systems that maybe you had in that marriage. The loss of the mutual friends, maybe the loss of your in-laws, that family members, the loss of the mutual community that you had. Maybe even you feel isolated because of the loss of that support system that you had within the marriage. Some women fear not being enough. When you get a divorce as a woman, there is some amount of that is a rejection, that is a betrayal, that you felt like you were a valued part of your relationship, and then the divorce happens and you feel like you were not enough for your spouse. So then you feel like in a future relationship, you're not going to be enough. You doubt your ability. You doubt your own strength. You may even doubt your ability to be on your own and think you're not enough. You're not good enough to handle yourself. You're not confident in your ability. You might even fear vulnerability. You might kind of go the opposite direction and think you have to be so strong that you fear opening up to anybody else and being vulnerable to anyone else because you might get hurt again. And to some extent, all of those fears are valid. All of those fears do have very, very real bases. All of those fears are real to some extent when you get outside of the divorce process and are trying to move on. But they are also monsters under the bed. They are not real. Because you have the ability to change your perspective. You have the ability to change your thoughts. You have the ability to control the way you perceive your circumstances. And you have the ability to change them. So I want to give you 7 steps to overcoming the monsters under the bed and to make them go away. So the first step is I want you to ask yourself, what are you really afraid of? Sometimes the thing you think you're afraid of is not really the thing you're afraid of. The thing that you think is the problem may not really be the problem at all. Sometimes, and maybe even all the time, fear stems from the insecurity. Fear stems from being uncertain of the outcome. Fear stems from just the uncertainty of taking the next step. So when you're in that place and you're feeling that fear, you're feeling that monster under the bed, I want you to ask yourself, why? Why am I scared? Why am I feeling these butterflies? Why am I feeling this fear? And when you get an answer to that question inside of you, I want you to ask yourself, why again? And then when you get that answer, I want you to ask yourself, why again? And I want you to do that 5 times. And when you dig a little deeper and dig a little deeper and dig a little deeper, when you do that to the 5th depth, then maybe you'll figure out what you're really afraid of. Number 2, I want you to analyze what you're afraid of and what's the absolute worst thing that can happen. Maybe somebody's asked you out on a date and you are terrified of going out on the date. What's the worst thing that can happen? You have a bad time? He has bad breath? He wears flip-flops? I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? Protect yourself, make sure that you're safe, make sure your girlfriends know where you're going, take your own transportation, don't get in a car with them, do a background check, make sure you are safe. Ladies, if you've been married a long time, 2024 is not the same in the dating world as it was back in 1990. Let's just put it that way, okay? We have to take measures to protect ourselves. So we're not talking about the tangible safety measures. But if you're just scared of meeting a guy for a coffee date, I get it. But what's the worst thing that could happen? He's boring, he has bad breath, he drinks the wrong kind of coffee, you don't like him, he doesn't like you? Well, good. Don't see him again. When you fairly evaluate all of the actual possible outcomes of the thing that you fear, if you can live with them, then there's actually nothing to fear, because you can go do the thing and live with the worst possible outcome. Number 3, what is the best thing that could happen out of the thing you fear? If the thing you fear is having the coffee date with somebody, maybe you might actually make a friend. Maybe the best possible outcome is you kind of like the guy and it leads to something. That'd be pretty dang cool, wouldn't it? Think of the positives, not the negatives. Dream big, and then you might actually win big. Number 4, what are the things that you actually have control over? Out of all the worst outcomes and all the good outcomes, what are the outcomes that you can control? Shift your thoughts to the thoughts that you actually can control, and let all the other ones go. You can't control those things that are out there that other people think, that other people are going to do. All you can do is control what you're going to do and what you're going to think. And then you just do those. Number 5, the opposite of that. Where do you have 0 control? If you can accept the things you cannot change, then you can let those go. You have 0 control over the weather. I can't control if it's sunshiny or raining today. If it's raining today, My hair is going to be frizzy and I can't control it. And if somebody is not going to like me because I have frizzy hair, you know what, ladies? That's just the way it is. So be it. I'm not going to fear that. Number 6, if I can't control it, can I influence it? If you can't control the obstacles, then can you work harder, work smarter, come up with a strategy to influence the outcome of the things that you cannot control? Can you create an environment that is favorable to the success instead of the things that work against you? So if it's raining outside and I know that my hair is going to be a frizzy mess, I can also get some frizzy defrizzing stuff and use it on those days, and maybe it'll help it. Maybe it'll be, instead of this frizzy, it'll be this frizzy. I can influence the outcome and try to make it better. And number 7, just take action. Don't let your fears paralyze you. And here's a place where I try to basically trick my mind so that I don't get paralyzed by my own fears. Whenever I'm putting my shoes on to go do something and I'm feeling the little butterflies inside of me that I identify as those monsters under the bed, the fear that I have, I'm kind of scared to go meet the new people. I'm scared to go talk to this deal. I'm scared to go to this networking event. I have these fears, and I know they're monsters under the bed. They're not real. What I do is when I'm putting my shoes on to go do the thing, I pretend like when I take my shoes off the shelf, I take these fears out of me and I put them up on the shelf where my shoes go. Or sometimes if they're really nice shoes, they go in a shoebox. So I'll take the fears out and I'll put them in the shoebox and I'll put the lid on it and I'll put the shoebox up on the shelf. And I tell the fears, like, you're staying in the shoebox, you're up on the shelf until I get back. And when I get back, I'll deal with you. But for right now, you're staying here in the shoe closet and I'm putting the shoes on and I'm gonna go do the thing. And then when I get back, I'll deal with the fear. And then I go do the thing. And then I'm not scared anymore. So get up, dress up, show up, leave the fear in the shoe closet, in the shoebox, and just take action. Because at the end of the day, all of those fears just hold you back from being the best you that you can be. So don't let them. You go and seize the day, seize the life that you deserve. Don't let your divorce be one of the monsters under your bed. You still can be everything that you want to be and can level up the life that you want even after your divorce. Thank you for joining me today.